the idea of parallel universes. You know, so you made a mistake in this universe, but you can redo it. You can go like in another universe. So this is where I think a little bit what the time-space integration is that teshuva is the ability to redo, you know, have a new version of yourself or have a new story plot for yourself. Parshat BaMidbar, we're starting a new, you know, it's a Mazel Tov, we're starting a new book. And so we're going to jump in here with commentary by Noam Elimelech, the great Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhinsk.
Yes, we're starting book number 4. We call it BaMidbar after the first essential word of the first sentence of the first verse. In English, they translate this book as the book of Numbers, the book of counting, the book of Numbers, because there are additional censuses, countings of the Jewish people occurring in this 4th book. So it's an appropriate name. Of course, in the first verse, we are put into context that this is beginning about a year after the Exodus from Egypt, a year and change on the first day, as we'll see, of the second month, the month of Iyar, Rosh Chodesh Iyar. This piece we're going to learn today is going to be a deep Hasidic interpretation of this first verse, which you might think, if you just read it, oh, it's an introductory verse, and God said to Moses, and away we go. But the Noam Elimelech is going to find within what might seem to the unknowing eye just a trivial verse over here, and he's going to take it to really beautiful places.
A lot of meaning.
Let's jump right into that.
Let's jump in. So, and before that, just very quick announcements. I want to say as always, we have a resource sheet on the website. And if you go to our website, I'll show you where the resource sheet is. You will go to, let me just open this up a little more. There you go. So you'll go to the website and you go to Jewish Resources and down to Parsha Videos. And that's where you will find the resource sheet. And the resource sheet is for those of you who can follow the Hebrew. You don't have to follow the Hebrew, by the way. There's also English translation of the verse. That's obviously, as Rebelli said, the first verse of the first chapter of the new book. And then we have the Noam Elimelech in the Hebrew is right here, and that is the commentary. While you're on the website, feel free to explore a little bit. If you're not familiar with Hebrew Learning Circles, look at our other programs and resources, and especially we have a new program or a restructured Bar and Bat Mitzvah program called Simple, Meaningful Bar and Bat Mitzvah. So take a look at that, and this may be of interest to you or somebody you know. And finally, as always, we like to we really appreciate it when you subscribe, like, and share. And the last thing I'll say that is, if you want to join Rabbi Eli and myself for discussion and live Q&A after the session, ask us about it. You can contact us through the website. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe b'midbar Sinai. It says, on the first day of the second month, in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, Adonai spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai. Be'ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting. Now, obviously every piece of this sentence is going to be meaningful, as we're going to see in a moment. Be'echad lachodesh, in the first of the month. Hasheni, the second month. Hashana Sheni, the second year. Let's sit down after they left the land of of Egypt. And Rabbi Elimelech says the following, Nir'ah דהתורה מלמדת לאדם שיתנהג עצמו. It seems as if the Torah here, maybe everywhere really, is teaching a person how to conduct him or herself, or how to manage him or herself. And how? What does he mean by that? כי להיות שהתורה ניתנה בסיני. That is because, as the verse stresses, the Torah was giving in Sinai, or at the mountain of Sinai. So what's the importance of the mountain of Sinai? למען ילמד האדם להיות תמיד מוכנע, גדול ונבזה בעיניו. In order for a person to learn, to always be humble and belittle in his own eyes, his or her own eyes. Now, why? What does that have to do with Sinai? כדרך שעשה השם יתברך ברוך הוא, שמאס בהרים הגבוהים ובחר בהר סיני הנמוך מכולם. Just like the Holy One, blessed be, who rejected the tallest mountains in the desert and chose the Mount Sinai, which was the lowest mountain of all in the desert, for giving the Torah. You would think that for that great of event, Hashem would choose, the greatest mountain. Could have chosen the Himalaya, right? But no, it was Mount Sinai, which is the modest, lowest mountain.
Right. So this is this idea of humility, of being humble, which he's going to get into the details here. It's counterintuitive, as you say, not just for presenting us with the Torah on the lowest mountain, but in general, this quality, this personality trait, is counterintuitive to many people, particularly in certain cultures, our culture, for example. A person who's humble and it doesn't share every single opinion he has 120,000 times and thinks his opinion is the opinion.
Yeah.
So that, if I don't do that, so that person is a schlepper, he's like, he's looked down upon as a loser.
Yeah.
You don't have a big mouth, you're a loser.
That's right. Yeah. Well, especially in Western culture. Zel BaMidbar Sinai, and that's what it means when the verse says in the desert of Sinai. רק לזה צריך האדם שלא יתעצב מחמת גודל ההכנעה ייפול בעצבות. But he's going to balance this out now. He says, yes, this is what it means when it say the desert of Sinai, but a person needs to not become sad or depressed from belittling or for humbling oneself.
And this might be one of the reasons why people treat this a little bit from a distance, because if I do self-introspection, if I try and humble myself before others, it could lead to depression.
Yeah.
It could, if it's not handled the right way.
That's right.
And and that's the warning that the Noam Elimelech is giving. This is a way to handle this.
Yeah.
Where you reap the great benefit of humility without the side effect, the negative side effect of sadness and depression.
Of sadness, and he's also giving us a reason, a spiritual reason. Excuse me. He says, why don't get depressed? It's not because he cares. Well, I'm sure he cares, but it's not because he cares about whether you're depressed or not. But you really can't serve God when you're sad. לכן הזהירה התורה עליו שיראה להיות תמיד בשמחה. And that's why the Torah also alerts us that a person should always be happy. כי אין השכינה שורה מתוך עצבות. As it says, the Shekhinah is not going to be present where there's sadness, right? So joy is a prerequisite for true spirituality. And Reb Nachman says, "Mitzvah gdola liot b'simcha tamid." So this is a very big understanding, especially in the Hasidic, philosophy and approach. So what a balancing out. We started with humility, but wait a minute, humility has its limits, because if it leads you to sadness, that's counterproductive. That's not where we need to go. Now he says, okay, well, look at the verse. How do we know that? He's not like philosophizing that. He's saying it's right there in the verse. The verse says, Be'ohel moed, in the tent of meeting. Now we need to understand the language here. Well, he's going to explain. Ki moed hu lashon yom tov. The word moed in ohel moed means a festival. Like a moed is Passover is a moed, or Rosh Hashanah is a moed, right? So ohel moed is the same word that defines the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, is also uses the word of that defines a festive time, a special time in the Jewish calendar, which is a happy time, right? So he says the verse itself tells you, be humble, but be happy. You got to find that, you see it right there in the verse. And then he continues, Be'echad lachodesh hashini, on the first of the second month. What does that mean? Pirush. Ve'im yomar ha'adam ech uchal lismoach kevan shirbeti lifshor. So, if a person asks him or herself, how can I be happy? I am so filled with transgression. I have too much of a load, right? So now, what's interesting is so far you can see the pattern in the sentence, that the first word BaMidbar Sinai is balanced by the second word Be'ohel Moed. The second word Be'ohel Moed is not going to be balanced by the third word. So every next phrase in the sentence is balancing out the word before it, the phrase before it.
Right, and it's interesting that he associates atzvut, sadness or depression, with what normally would cause a Jew to become sad and depressed. That he recognizes his shortcomings in his relationship to the divine.
That's right. Yeah.
That in itself is like, what
right.
What makes me depressed? I lost $1 million in the stock market, could make it,
right.
Or whatever it is,
Yeah.
But he's saying what he's assuming.
That's right.
That this is what
right.
is giving me grief,
Well, that is a higher level assumption.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's because because we're talking about the spiritual journey. We're talking about, that's his focus. We're not focusing on let's have a happy-go-lucky life. That's a different, it's a different chapter in a different book, not in this book. All right, so he explains. Okay, so what does that have to do then with Be'echad lachodesh hasheni, with the first of the second month? So he's going to unpack the language. ולזה אמרה התורה, אף על פי כן יראה לעשות תשובה בשמחה. This is why the Torah says, nevertheless, even though you are full of transgression, you need to do teshuvah with joy. Joyful teshuvah. And that's again counterintuitive, right? Because I'm doing teshuvah, we beat our chest, right? He says, no beating your chest. He says, correct your ways with joy. That's counterintuitive. והתחזק עצמו לומר, אני כאילו נולדתי היום הזה ולא אשוב עד לכיסה. And strengthen yourself and say to yourself, today I am reborn. And I'm going to start again, fresh, and I'll never go back to my what's kisla, silly ways, or
Yeah,
you could say, yeah.
foolishness.
וזה נקרא חידוש שנתחדש כבריאה חדשה. And here's his point. He says, so that is considered a renewal, as if I renew myself, as if I'm a new person. Now, what is the connection of the first day of the second month to renewal? The word chodesh. The word chodesh means month, but it also has the root of new. The month, I mean, this is not a poetic thing. A month is a new moon, according to Jewish tradition. So the word for month is vanu, meaning the new moon. And here he says, like a new moon, you can become new. But just to appreciate the word month on the calendar and the word renewal is exactly the same word. That's where he gets the idea of renewing oneself. And this is what it means on the first of the second month. Because this person is renewed twice. That's what it means, the second month, right? Don't read it as second month, read it as 2 months or 2 renewals. How does a person is renewed twice? Once, when you're born. Remember last time, I remember we talked about reincarnation. Remember? What's reincarnation? That is renewal, right? So when you're born again, whatever the past life was, now you come fresh back into the world with a new chance. So one renewal is being born. But what's the second renewal? On the day that you do teshuvah, and what's teshuvah, by the way? We need to explain that word.
Right. So people think it means repentance. That's the way it's usually translated, which is okay. But it actually comes from the word lashuv, tashuv, to return to one's true self, which is one with divinity, one with God. That's our true self, the soul.
Right.
The body is the container that we walk around, stumble around in for 120 years in good health. But the real thing is the juice. That's what you want, the juice, the soul. Yeah. And the soul is chelek eliko mimal mamish, as it says in Sefer Tanya in the Hasidic books. It's one with God.
Yes.
And so to return to my original state of being one with the divine, that's the teshuvah. When I do an avera, when I do a chait, that's a turning away. Right.
Because what you're saying is, we think about it as sin. No, bad boy. It's not bad boy or bad girl. This is actually the deeper thing. Is you've fallen away from who you are, from who you're, your potential. So that's what he means by teshuvah. So he says, when a person in this life does teshuvah, recalibrates, come back to, now I know where I need to be and what I need to do and how I need to be and all that. That is like becoming born. So this is teshuvah really is born again. Right? It's like that's what he's saying here. And now he says, it's on the second year after they left the land of Israel. That also has a meaning that's beyond just a calendar marker. גם כן על הדבר הזה, כי השם יתברך ברוך הוא הוציאנו ממצרים. So this is also important, he says, because the Holy One, blessed be, took us out of the land of Egypt. What's the land of Egypt? The land of Egypt is the greatest shells. This is a Kabbalistic term, meaning the containers that hold us away from God. So Egypt was, or the experience of being slaves in Egypt, was experience of being, according to Kabbalah and Chassidut, it was being sunken in the 49 gates of impurity. They were so surrounded by impurity that they lost any connection with their real spiritual source.
Right. The very word we say Egypt, but Mitzrayim comes from the Jewish Hebrew word Meitzarim, which literally means a narrow strait, like the Panama Canal or something like that. But it refers spiritually to constricted consciousness. Yeah. When I'm closed-minded, I can't see my connection to the divine. I can't see my true purpose. I can't relate to the soul part of myself.
Yeah.
That's a constriction of consciousness, which is referred in this, which is brought out in the story of the telling of the story of the coming out of Mitzrayim, Egypt, where we sink, as you said, we become distanced from God, and the coming out of that constricted consciousness is related to the teshuvah that the Rebbe was speaking about.
Yeah, beautiful. ותמיד כשאדם עושה תשובה על חטאיו, הוא יוצא מהקליפה אל הקדושה. So, it says, every time a person does teshuvah, as we said, repentance is a simple meaning, but the self-transformation is a deeper meaning. Because of a recognition of one's transgressions, one's falling away from the path, that is, in essence, a going out of the shells into the holy. And this is called leaving Egypt. In other words, leaving Egypt is a metaphor for self-transformation, exiting from a place that's narrow, a place of impurity, into a place that is holy. וזה נקרא בשנה השנית. And this is what it means, he was going to tell us, the second year. So now he's not talking about anymore specifically the leaving of Egypt, which just we talked about, but the second year after leaving Egypt. He says that is meaningful. It's teaching us something that is on the second year after leaving Egypt. Ki haolam nikra shana, because the world, this world, is called a year. So in the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, it's an ancient Kabbalistic text. That why is the world called Shana? Because it says Shana, Olam Shana Nefesh, and like the world has three levels or three dimensions. The dimension of Shana, of year, simply translated year, is the dimension of time. It really means time. Like we have the dimension of space, time, and soul.
As you stated, normally we categorize our existence Kabbalistically in three states. We call it, the acronym is Ashan, but it's Olam Shana Nefesh. Space, the world is space. Shana, year, is time, space and time. And the third dimension for us is spirituality, the nefesh, the soul level, the spiritual dimension, consciousness.
That's right.
Now, normally we associate those as three separate categories. But what the Naim Elimelech is saying here, he's saying that if you look into the Sefer Yetzirah, it's not so. That is a false understanding. The space, the olam, and the shenis, the time, they're working together. Working together. So we can, what he's saying here is that we have the ability, it's giving us the ability to have a new perspective at all times, which allows for teshuvah.
I just want to add to that the idea of parallel universes. So you made a mistake in this universe, but you can redo it. You can go like in another universe, you can actually not make the mistake. So this is where I think a little bit what the time-space integration is that teshuva is the ability to redo, have a new version of yourself or have a new story plot for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what's teshuva. I think that's what in other words, how I'm hearing what you're saying here. So, V'zeni kal b'shana shenit. So this is the second year. So why the second year? Ki ha'olam nikra shana, the world can be called time. L'mar shegam b'shana shenit. So when it says on the second year, it's that also in the second year, Perush ba'olam achshav, gam ken yesh Yetziat Mitzrayim shenit, that Yetziat Mitzrayim did not only happen as an historical event, but it's happening right now too, to you in your own life. It's like you're reliving, this is the alternate universe of your personal leaving of Egypt. Achshav gam ken yesh Mitzrayim shenit. This is a second leaving of Egypt. Behainu b'sha'ah she'oseh adam teshuvah kanal. And this is, when does that happen? When does the second leaving of Egypt happen again? When a person does conscious teshuva. In other words, chooses to transform him or herself and come back to the connection with God. Behaven, and understand this.
I love it. Yeah, the ability to reinvent oneself, to create oneself anew in a literal way, the power of teshuva.
That's right.
Right? The Gemara says nothing stands in the way of teshuva. But how does that work? So he's giving us a little bit of a hint, a little bit of an inkling about how to think about teshuva, this returning to our true selves and reinventing and a literal kind of a spiritual rebirth.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's such a hopeful message. What I take from this is that you have the second month of the second year, and this is all about second chance.
Right.
It's like create a second universe for yourself. Create a new world for yourself. This is, and you can't do that with sadness. You can't do that with only beating yourself, beating your chest. You need to do that also with a smile or with renewal and all that. That's profound.
Yeah. And maybe the message here he's trying, by explaining this in this Kabbalistic way, is to help lead us to this joy, because this potential is a joyful thought.
It's a hopeful something.
It's a hopeful. It gives a person hope. In other words,
it's a good way to start a new book. Also, BaMidbar. It's it's a new book is like a fresh start too.
Right.
That's book number 4. So, okay, with that, we're going to conclude for today, and thanking everybody for learning with us. God willing, we'll be back next Wednesday morning at 9:00. We look forward to seeing you then. Please, did I mention subscribing, liking, and commenting? What do you think about this? How does it touch you? Let's continue the conversation going. Shalom for now. Ahava